All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Brandon, and welcome back to Seminary Reflections, the show devoted to kind of going into the world of seminary in an attempt to understand it better and to um, just give you some of my thoughts as a person who went to seminary and how seminary, the system could be made better, where it's being done well, and in the instance of today's video, an option that I didn't even know was existed. I didn't even know this was an option. Yes, this is not an episode devoted to you all admiring my new haircut, although it is awesome and I am trying a new style. Thank you for noticing, and it's going to be great because I'm also growing my hair out, but had to start somewhere with that. But no, you see, every year, I set aside a series of goals for the YouTube channel, my podcast, just anything like that's content creating related. I set aside a series of goals for myself, and anytime I accomplish any of these goals, I do a live stream here on the YouTube channel. And I got one done in 2025. I got one. It was kind of a slow year for me on that in that regard, but it's okay. We're already almost 3 months into the new year, so who knows what's going to happen there. But this is the IOU live stream from accomplishing one of the goals from 2025, talking about a seminary option that I didn't even know existed. And so I guess I'll start here with, do you know the name Cherry Hill Seminary? If you do, that could mean one of two things. Option one is that you're like me and you're just a weirdo who ends up in odd places on the internet that you are not even sure and can't really even remember how you ended up there. Or option B, you're a pagan. And I mean that literally, like you identify as a religious pagan individual. I did not know that this was an option, but Cherry Hill Seminary is a seminary for people of the pagan belief systems. The paganism, witchcraft, Wicca, all of these kinds of things. It's very broad. There's a lot of different ways that the pagan faith, it's not like one very specific way, and it's not necessarily the same as how we have Christianity, but there's Catholicism, Orthodox, Protestant, and Protestant is broken up into all these different denominations. It's not necessarily like that either, but there are different ways that individuals practice their pagan beliefs. It's so much more individualistic versus like more of like a corporate, like I'm describing within Christianity. But Cherry Hill Seminary is a seminary that exists to give people in the pagan space the opportunity to do higher education that is related to their field of study. They are or I guess I shouldn't say their field of study, but rather their system of belief. Cherry Hill Seminary is a nonprofit. From what I understand, though, it is not an accredited institution, but the main purposes, there's kind of two main purposes as I was checking out their website. The two main purposes of this institution is to, one, contribute to a more scholarly body towards the very large umbrella of paganism, but there is also one of the purposes is to also give people some form of an accreditation, some form of a piece of paper that shows that they have done very specific studies, so that way they can then go into chaplaincy roles. Have looked into going into chaplaincy before, and there are certain forms and certificates and accreditations that some do look for, especially if you're talking about like hospital chaplaincy. There are very specific like pieces of paper, ordination, and not even ordination, but very specific certifications that people are looking for, especially if you're going to be in an environment where you're going to be doing some form of counseling as well. Cherry Hill Seminary exists as an on-road ramp for people of the pagan belief system, pagan faith, to then be able to get onto the road to work in chaplaincy roles within different, specifically like in a hospital sort of environment. Again, not all chaplaincy positions require specific qualifications and all of that. It just really depends on which one you're looking at. And this is part of why Cherry Hill exists, is because not everybody is going to be comfortable with talking to a Catholic priest. People are going to want a person at times who is a part of their belief system to talk to and to process what's going on in their life. Insert Cherry Hill Seminary. They've been around, as I was reading, I want to say they started in the 90s as a correspondence school, which is something that I have no frame of reference for. I've never had to do correspondence school. But since I think it was the early 2000s, maybe the 2010s, they moved to a strictly online format. So you can go in or you can apply to go to the seminary and do classes wherever you are because of the online option. I was very surprised. Again, I can't really even remember how I ended up in this down this trail, but I'm really surprised that the name, that it's a seminary. The fact that there is an institution devoted towards this purpose of contributing to the academic studying of paganism and all of its forms, and also serving as an on-road for later ministry work within paganism, that stuff doesn't surprise me. It's the fact that it's called a seminary. I figured we coined the Christian variety people. I figured we coined that term and that was our thing. I'm not saying that it is wrong that they're using it or that we need to take it back or anything like that. I just didn't realize other people were using that term for that. A divinity school is kind of broader. That seems to be something that you find more in like liberal arts environments or something that's not like strictly a Bible Christian faith institution. You might have a divinity school with interdisciplinary things, like you can study Christianity and Judaism and Islam and all these kinds of things. I did not know that other people would use the term seminary. But the usage of terms doesn't stop there, because they also offer Masters of Divinity. Again, I thought that was like an us thing. I didn't realize other people would use the term Master of Divinity. And I'm going to have to shorten this video up more than I already am because my producer needs my attention. Yes, buddy, Daddy is working on a project right now. What you need, Producer Cooper? You need those cars. Okay. When I am done here, I will help you with your car project. Okay. We're almost done over here. Okay. You got this. Hang in there, buddy. Perks of being a content creator, stay-at-home dad who has to do everything all of the time. I'm fine. I'm not stressed. Where was I? Masters of Divinity. Right. They offer a Master of Divinity. They offer several different things. That is like their biggest certificate. I shouldn't say certificate. Degree. That is their biggest degree that they offer. And by biggest, I mean they do not have a doctoral program. They do offer a spiritual direction certificate. Actually, some of these they call them insight courses, which kind of seems to be like the individual, okay, we're gonna just do like a one-time study on this very specific subject kind of thing, versus like an ongoing degree program. Along with, I'm trying to see here. So they have their Masters of Divinity, Master of Pagan Studies. They have different concentrations, ministry, advocacy, and leadership, pastoral counseling. I guess pagans used the term pastor, pastoral counseling and chaplaincy, theology and religious history, probably very interesting study field. as somebody who every once in a while finds themselves in a situation when they're like, okay, I have my bachelor's, I have my master's. Is it time to do something else now within the academic field? The first thing I'm reminded of is the answer is no, because everything is so expensive. Everything is so expensive right now. I cannot afford to go to school. Plus, I have producer Cooper that I need to make sure he can start preschool soon. Yeah, he's a big boy. Producer Cooper's growing up. But every once in a while, I find these and I'm like, this would be interesting because I don't necessarily want to devote all the time and finances towards a master's of divinity in pagan theology and history, as interesting as that could be. I don't necessarily want to direct all of my energy into that and financial resources, but they do have some certificates that, honestly, as somebody who is growing into more of an open spirituality within their Christian faith, they have some certificates that I'm like, honestly, kind of interested. This one, I pulled it up. I pulled up their list of certificates. So I have a ministry certificate. Again, that's serving a very specific purpose that, like, I don't really need particularly. They also have Rewilding the Soul, Eco Spirituality Certificate. And this is a certificate devoted towards learning how to live in tune with nature, the wheel of seasons, the wheel of nature. I forget what they call it, which is honestly very similar to living through the church calendar if you're of a more liturgical variety. Just kind of living in fluence with that and how that can kind of ground an individual and deepen their spirituality. And honestly, kind of sounds interesting to me if I'm being honest with you all. There's a spiritual director certificate, what I think is kind of part of the um, part of more of the this is why I don't do live videos very often, but it's fun for you all to watch me to watch me fail live and in living color on YouTube. But the spiritual director certificate is a little bit more towards the chaplaincy side of things. Another one that I'm like, okay, I think this would be broad enough and also from a very unique perspective that it could be both interesting and nourishing to me. Writing as a spiritual practice certificate. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's a very specific spiritual discipline certificate, essentially, to continue to borrow words from the Christian faith. It's spiritual. It's a spiritual discipline. It's growing in your spirituality through writing practices and journaling and other. There's more that is described here. So yeah, I find all of this very interesting. Again, it's surprising in a way that there is a higher institution devoted towards paganism, although at the same time, like in the year of our Lord 2026, I guess that makes sense. There at this point, you can basically take a course somewhere on anything. Like, so I guess the fact that this exists is kind of surprising, but not like shocking or anything like that. I think the surprising part is the use of the terms like seminary or masters of divinity, but maybe there's like a that all of that might be towards helping add a level of, I don't want to say legitimacy because they've been around basically as long as I have existed. So they definitely have their own credentials, that's for sure. But maybe that's just supposed to help their people to be able to find jobs. And so, okay, yeah, we have a master's of divinity. We are a seminary, things like that. All of that is to say, depending on who you are watching this, I'm not here to give you the reason to go raise a stink somewhere else. I'm not raising a stink about this. I just find this all very interesting. Interesting enough that, like, if I had the money, I honestly would probably work on one of these certificates. They sound interesting to me, and I think they could actually nourish me and help me in my spiritual journey. So I I'm just sharing all of this with you simply because it's interesting. I found it interesting, and that's part of what the seminary reflection show is about. It's just me kind of like learning about different areas of the higher education world and like just telling you about it. I'm not advocating for, let me make that clear again. I'm not advocating for raising a big stink about these people. Let them have their seminary. They can have it. They've been around longer than I realized doing this work. Let it be. The point here is, did you know that there were other people using the term seminary and masters of divinity and that pagan schools exist? I did it. And I'm sure that the idea of a pagan school or a institute or anything like that, institution, I'm sure within the pagan space has to ruffle some feathers, because the fact that seminaries exist ruffles the feathers of Christians. So I'm sure maybe even more so depending on the pagan, like it it might really ruffle some feathers that there is an institution like this that exists when this is so much more of a community driven, um so much more of like community driven, individualistic in their spiritual practices and growth, that it's like, you know, I guess the point is I could see how something like this existing as an institution could maybe not be popular within their spaces, but obviously it has appealed to a certain group of people for like 30 years now that have also been able to go off and go on and do, chaplaincy work and spiritual director work and things like that. So that's all I have for you all today. I am very thankful that producer Cooper found something to do long enough for me to wrap this up for you all. So thank you for watching. Like I said, got a whole batch of goals for 2026. And as those get accomplished, I will be back with more live streams here on YouTube. If you missed it, there is a new show here on Studio 219 called I Don't Know Politics, where I talk about the fact that I don't know politics. And that just seems to be causing me more harm than good. And it's time for me to start better understanding what's going on in the world around me. So the first episode just came out the other day, 2 days ago, something like that. So it's up here on the channel if you've missed it. This is also a place for faith and pop culture. So there's plenty of other pop culture content on here. There's a video coming out on Thursday from Kung Fu Pizza Party, my podcast where I do all things martial art media related. I did an episode back in January on survival horror gaming, and there is a video coming out on Thursday of game footage of me playing Hello Neighbor. So buckle up. It's bad. I sucked at that game. So you can watch me fail, just like you watched me fail on this live stream. You can watch me fail a lot in that video. But thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.